Hey.
Hi.
Welcome back to another episode of Reclaim Today.
That's right. And this is
Mhm.
a special one that we thought we would run after a discussion last week that it dawned on us, Pilot, that what happens as we pull the trigger on yet another roundup tomorrow? What do we?
Tomorrow is the 1 year anniversary of the first Roundup. So technically our 13th issue
Wow.
because,
It's incredible.
yeah,
But we've been doing it a year. It's
yep,
official. And
it's wild.
consistently, people can depend on it, right? Like the
Mhm.
weather and taxes. Here it comes.
I don't know if I
So,
want to compare our newsletter to taxes, but
So,
fair
for
enough.
those that are just joining Reclaim hosting or just kind of getting a sense of who we are, it might make sense to start first with just quickly sharing what the Reclaim Roundup is. Pilot, is that something you want to do?
yeah, sure. The Roundup is our monthly newsletter. It goes out on the last business day of the month. That it's kind of evolved over the course of the year. I think we're going to talk a little more about that later, but it collects announcements for what's going on in the upcoming month and the next couple of months. It collects things like this. The Reclaim Today that we're doing right now will be in the newsletter that comes out tomorrow. There's different blog posts from over the month, the new support documentation that our support team puts together every month. And then we also have a section for staff picks, which is just fun little things that we think people should know more about. Not even necessarily tech related, just fun stuff to close out the day.
And it was cool because the roundup was born of a conversation we had in Nashville, which was a
Mhm.
team trip we took. Um, Pilot, I think you had been with us at that point, maybe 2 or 3 months. So
November, yeah,
fairly new.
around
You
two
came in
months.
September. That was in November. And we're
Mhm.
going to take another team trip in just a couple of weeks, which is
Yep.
super exciting, or even under a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's
Um,
coming up.
yeah, but so we were, brainstorming some of the things that we could do better. And
Mhm.
I think one of the things we all came kind of to agree upon is communicating more regularly all the stuff we're doing at any given point of time. And we came up with the idea of let's try and do a newsletter of some kind via email. And that was in November. And by this late December, early January, we had decided to put that in place.
Yeah.
Does that strike you as all as kind of how it happened?
Yeah, we were setting our 2023 goals, and that was one of them. Um,
2022. So,
yes.
so
I
our
know, time.
That's
Yeah,
right.
our Nashville team trip was November 2021, and we were reminiscing over the achievements from 2021, thinking about everything that we accomplished, but everything that we wanted for 2022, which I guess was last year now.
Yeah.
And it's those team trips we try to do at least once a year, and they're a great chance for our team, which is distributed, to come together in person. We try to work and brainstorm together for a day, and then have a chance to explore a new city as a team. And so yes, that was the day where I think all of our internal teams split up and thought broadly about what's working, what's not working, what should we aim to do better. And I think the consensus across the team was just more cohesive and reliable communication. And that's something that we're still going to be pushing in this next year. And I'm excited to really dig into that more in our team trip. And yes, in a couple of weeks. But I think looking back at 2022, one of our larger achievements was the Reclaim Roundup. And so it feels really cool now to be at the end of 2022, moving into a fresh year, and to look back and to see 12 newsletters that really capture the work from our team over the last year. And that for me was one of the really surprising benefits of the Roundup. It's more than just communication, but we're actually capturing our thinking, capturing the work. And it's a great reflection point each month. I think when you're working at such a fast pace, it's really easy to put your head down and work and then pop up 6 months later and go, what did we even do? And so to have the Roundup is sort of this collection of blog posts and announcements and support documentation and events, and just there's so much. And so I really enjoyed having those and reading through those, and Pilot, your work to put them together each month has been phenomenal.
Thanks.
Hear,
It's
hear.
very fun.
Yeah.
That's also going to be my today and tomorrow, pretty much.
Just putting them
Fun
together.
and time consuming.
Yeah.
I've kind of played, pinch hitter for a bit, and it is a lot. And I think that's worth actually a good segue to look at them.
Mhm.
So to give you a sense of like what a given month's newsletter might look like. So this is the most recent, and we're probably not going to look at that. Maybe we'll start at the about page, and then we'll go to like this or January of 2022 and work our way through.
Yeah.
So here's the about page. And, this is something we threw up. This is a gift that Brian Mathers made for us back in the day for Reclaim hosting. And we thought it would be fun to kind of make some noise and kind of communicate more regularly is how we interpret that with the kind of vinyl spinning. And then, we kind of go in to say, like, this is a way of thinking about the work we do with agency, and also a way for us to collect what we've done, right? Recent blog posts, all the things you said, and kind of like share it. It's our kind of keeping the door a little bit open for the work we do here at Reclaim for other folks to see and hopefully join in, or we've kind of been pushing more broadly for different ways of communicating and connecting with our community.
Yeah, I like that it's one of the ways that we can live by or practice what we preach, and that, we really are trying to work in the open and be as transparent as possible, not only with the tools that we're using, but just with how we're communicating and sharing that work. So you can, for folks that really just want to take a peek at these and, catch the highlights, that's possible. But there's also so many links that are embedded, in these spaces that allow you to drill into various blog posts and announcements to gather more details, or just to see, how we're navigating tricky situations or thinking through changes in tech. And so I really like that it's meant for all types of readers too.
Yeah, definitely. And a big part of it, hopefully, at least when I try to make it, is that in theory, each paragraph should be able to stand either on its own, or max, it needs one or two neighbors. The idea of you could, in theory, just randomly scroll halfway down the page and hit on a little chunk and read that and go, okay, I have everything I need to know about following this link. Okay, this sounds cool. I'll follow this link, or I can keep going. So that it can be engaging and easy for people who I know are super busy all the time. And we're really busy. We've been saying, like, the Roundup gets really long. And so trying to find that nice balance of, let's make sure that we're acknowledging and sharing what we're doing, and making it easy for people to jump in and keep up, and to say, oh, I don't maybe have time to look at the staff picks this month, but that's fine because the announcements are up top. That's really what I need to know. Making it easy for people to feel comfortable looking for what is most important to them.
You're muted, Jim.
That's an ongoing thing with me. Obviously, no surprise there. But I also like the idea of the Roundup as a look inside what we're doing, but also for people who like, one of the things we've done is we've grown over the last year and a half. We have different groups, and like, we want people to know the work we're doing and how we're thinking about it, but also if people want to come work with us. Like Cloudflare said about their blog, it's as much a recruiting tool as an informational source. And, not that we're always recruiting, but I want people to know, like, the cool work we do, and that it's a good place to work, and that it's a good place to kind of, like, what we're doing is valuable. And I think people are able to really explore and build it. And I love that some of the people who may never get seen at Reclaim with the Roundup get some space and get that kind of visibility and hopefully get that voice so that they can do things, at Reclaim and beyond. And I love that piece of it.
I think that's a really good point, Jim. And something that I've noticed even beyond that is how it keeps accountability within our own team dynamics, to constantly be looking for things to celebrate and to constantly be looking for things to share. I found this cool tool and, it helps me record my screen or whatever, and being able to share that with my team and getting into the habit of just, just that collaboration in Slack is something that, as the team continues to grow, you always want to make sure that those foundational concepts and things, the mission of Reclaim stands. And so I really love that this is one of the ways that we can continue to just constantly be on the lookout for, so-and-so did something really great. Not only do I need to make a point to share it in Slack, but we want to make sure that carries over into a more dedicated space, the Roundup. And so, being able to collect that each month or over the course of the month, and then seeing the team slowly catch on to that habit is, again, one of those things that's really hard to instill. But once it's there, it's really great. And so I love that the Roundup kind of does that as well.
I agree. And I think, one of the things that's kind of nice is we can see it. And the blog, like, let's say, frequency amongst the entire team, like people writing and sharing this stuff, has gone up as a result. I firmly believe that, because I think people feel like their work will be read. Mm-hmm. And that centralized pushing it out to, 600 plus people now matters, because that's work that is not just going to die on the vine, because part of the problem with the blogging is you never know if anyone's reading. But people, when they write something, they kind of want it to be read. And so this kind of fills that gap a little bit. So how is this in terms of space? Can you all read this if I zoomed in enough? Okay.
Yeah, that's great. I think it might be worth, starting with the first one.
Let's do it. We might have to, I just want to say, having scrolled through while you were talking, Lauren, we might need to find a new convention for the titles now, because we've kind of...
I ran out of puns.
We ran out of Roundup puns. We need to think about that.
Well, also it's kind of, I'm not sure if you all listen to podcasts, but podcast episodes that start off with sort of funky titles when they're first beginning, but then slowly they have to have some sort of, January 2023, and then the title or something, just so they're a little more findable. And that might be the change that we have to make in this coming year too.
The first line of every newsletter is news from month of year. So I do want, the titles are not super helpful, but we've had that since the beginning.
I do love that it's, there was one, what was it? We won't go to it yet, but it was, Electric Boogaloo. I like, that just makes no sense.
I literally couldn't think of anything for June, and so I put that in place. And then I think you were the one who found the we can look at the page picture for that.
Brilliant. I love it. Okay, so here we go. January 2022. New vistas indeed. This is actually an image I took here in Trentino. And kind of playing on the new vistas, but we got to work early with the gifts, didn't we?
Oh yeah.
One of the best parts of the newsletter, in my opinion.
That's awesome. And I guess this is the month we had to introduce the whole idea and just basically say hey, this is something we're doing now.
And it's, you can already see that we were trying to think about larger categories. So each month we're going to try to bring in a collection of announcements, and then, a collection of blog posts and a collection of support documentation and events, kind of having those cornerstones in each roundup.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see right here as we're doing the announcements right away, where basically deprovisioning Cloud Linux and we're doing our new, it never gets talked about, but the managed service agreement, right?
Yep.
Or is that the master service agreement?
The master services agreement at the beginning of last year, we had made revisions to that. And that's something that we have slowly pushed out to our contracts over the course of this year. But it's crazy, that sort of thing I would have absolutely forgotten had it not been for this newsletter.
Yeah. And this is also the sort of thing that goes hand in hand with other stuff that we were talking about on that team trip. I remember we all sat down and we said, all right, what does sales want to accomplish in 2022? What is infrastructure accomplishing? What is support planning to accomplish? And part of it was saying, we're going to start doing this custom installers thing. We're going to start deprovisioning Cloud Linux. We're revising the MSA, all of those things. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I really like the idea of this first one was sort of nailing down a bunch of intentions that we'd talked about, and we had them internally, but making that sort of official and public and committing to that. But also, as you said, Jim, people like to know that what they're doing is going to be heard about. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing here is like just getting through like some of the things that we're thinking about, right? In custom installers, like we knew we wanted to kind of break free of some of the development work on Installatron. So here we're actually talking about trying to open that up where the developers take on the Installatron. And so that started that whole kind of discussion, which has gone on for a year, and it's kind of made folks make a choice of whether I own it or whether Installatron owns it or whether we don't provide it. And so think about how long these conversations have to happen.
Right. From the point at which you are thinking about it and planning it, which honestly, our plan to open up custom installers to web developers began probably summer of 2021, if not earlier. And so then to finally put that into place internally and then officially announce it in January. And then it took literally a year for to communicate that across to all customers, but also really to start coordinating with the web developers and the folks that have, owned some of these custom installers in the past. And now, we can go find announcements wrapping up the end of 2022, with how we're tying a knot on this project. So, another great example as you're continuing to scroll, Jim, is the community chat. And Pilot, bringing back to what you were saying about setting intentions, this is when we started this idea of community chats, which was just this monthly opportunity tailored mostly towards, I think, administrators for some of our larger schools that are working with domain of one's own or managed hosting to come together and just chat about various topics that are relevant or, sort of in the thinking for a given month. And so it's cool to see this already captured in month one.
And we have another anniversary, I guess, with the community chats, which is interesting, or past one. We've gone a year. So
a couple of weeks ago, it would have been.
Yeah. Oh, and then here's our announcements now. Here's another one, New York City DH. This is actually where we found the University of Houston. Actually, Linda was at this event, and that's when she followed back up and was like, hey, this was a cool event held by the New York City Digital Humanities folks. I talked about Reclaim Cloud. And kind of that was one of the things we wanted to do in 2022 is push on the cloud. And kind of we did, I think, to some great effect. And
100%.
That's a kind of interesting moment. It's just crazy. And then my favorite part, the blog posts. Not dead
it's so
yet.
Interesting when we had like 4, maybe 5 announcements listed.
I know. That was one of the immediate things I noticed is how small the announcement section was in January 2022. I'm looking forward now to comparing it to what this month's newsletter is going to look like.
We never have less than 5 announcements just for events.
Events only.
Just for events.
Not even internal maintenance work or upcoming changes or things to consider. It's quite it's a lot.
Here's the BYU post, which I think is one of the best Reclaim hosting posts ever, where we talk about deprovisioning 10,000 sites, or Lauren, that's the royal we there. And like the kind of appreciation we got from that, and just how good of a spin down that was for a domain of one's own school. That's cool to see.
And it was, again, one of those projects that took over a year to think about, plan for, and make happen. And, we're still now transitioning those users and communicating with folks in a shared hosting space, thinking about, the longevity of that server, and just, projects like that really do span the test of time, I think, in a lot of ways.
This was also the month where Tim blogged, I think this is the last time he blogged, about the domains API and the idea of actually, rekindling some of the work we've done there and trying to do it. And that's still a conversation going forward. So it's funny how some of these are long life points that live. And then here's the custom applications, Lauren, that you had written about.
Live streaming is finding its way into Reclaim's culture more and more recently. We have a whole section for that. We have a new section that's just for that. I say it's new. We've had it for a couple months, but
that's so cool.
Yeah.
But and also this is Taylor doing his Foundry one, which was one of his first streams.
Yeah. This is also interesting to me just from a formatting perspective. These are all in bullet points now. I would never do that now. They all get their own paragraphs specifically.
Yeah, it's wild to see this. And then learning in Reclaim Cloud has been the theme. Meredith's documented experience of migrating an outdated Mattermost. That was one of the early sessions where Taylor and Meredith got together, and we started to see this in the huddles, which were fairly new to the Slack huddles, and them troubleshooting a Mattermost issue with the database, which was a nightmare. And they figured it out. And that was pretty cool.
And Jim, it's interesting that you touch on the huddles, because I think also what's happening sort of between the lines here is we were really making a push internally to increase professional development, to increase this idea of learning together and collaborating around issues that we needed assistance on or needed help with. And, now a year later, all of our team meetings, our weekly meetings are happening in huddles. We have a help channel where folks are regularly jumping in to ask questions and to troubleshoot issues together. And we have for this month, really, we've had something on the calendar each week for an all hands team professional development meeting around, whether it's multi-region in the cloud or something like, an overview of our registrars to best security practices. And so it's really cool to see how this is maybe one of the first moments that we captured of, this idea of huddles and working together. We need to be doing more of that as opposed to just, writing in Slack or in internal notes. So I wanted to mention that too.
It's funny too, because, that's also the month I wrote about Reclaim Ed Tech. And that's something that we'll put into play, and you'll see it as something going forward, like it's actually a team. And I think that encapsulates all the things you talked about collaboration and thinking about teams differently and thinking about the work we do. So that's pretty cool to see that blog post. Also, we were kind of doing the whole thing of practice what you preach with Ghost, right? Like we're running our newsletter in Ghost. And so we did a whole series about how other people can do it.
Yeah. And that was, I remember, also a little bit of a trial by fire, because we always say sort of building the plane as you fly it. We were getting used to how to set up Ghost and how to use it really mostly as we were setting up the newsletter. And so I think the part of these tutorials and these streams were, I know you like to just document, to say, all right, I worked through this and I better not forget it. And so in some ways, these are just us going, all right, how do we fix whatever we just did?
Which we had to.
Yeah.
Right? Soon, in like the next month.
Yep.
And this tutorial arguably is not even like relevant anymore, because Taylor built a one-click installer that works far better for Reclaim Cloud. So like that's an interesting piece too, is like, some of these are work in progress. Both of these are me documenting on the fly, figuring out my hack way. And then, we will make it better and more kind of, so there's a ton of stuff.
Might still be relevant.
goes
email
here.
configuration part.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, the email is still relevant. But look how much goes documenting of what we had built. That's super interesting and very in line.
Mm-hmm.
I also
love
like
this.
just kind of
Gift.
seeing the ratio of where work is happening, because
Yeah.
it does sort of change month to month, where, okay, if it's a very event heavy month, our blog posts or support documentation or, might be slightly smaller because you can see where our focus has gone. And then in the month like this, for instance, where we're thinking about a lot of the events to come, at this point, instructional technology at Reclaim had just been announced, and we were just, really thinking about putting together some sort of calendar of events. And we had hired Taylor very recently to help think through these things. And we had the first community chat, and it's really about to just sort of blow up, I think. And so it's like, I'm excited now to maybe compare this to something in the middle of the year, 6 months later, where did we land? How has the Roundup changed? But still, it's super cool to see all of these guides, even.
Yeah, there's a ton of guides just here in January. So that's right. We're at the end, and you can
We
notice.
don't have a goodbye GIF. We didn't do a goodbye GIF in January.
Nor do we have any like, hey, here's a featured section of just things we recommend.
Staff picks didn't exist until February or maybe even March.
Okay, so let's go. I'm going to do a little crazy scroll here. And I'm going to go to the archive, and I'm going to go to June. Boogaloon.
Yep.
Roundup June.
July is a good example of how things change depending on what we have on the calendar. I think June is maybe a better example to explore, but July, just the blog posts, I don't even have to check which month we had the most blog posts in 2022. It was July.
Well, and that typically makes sense, because I think the summer has naturally become just a natural time of reflection for the team. The semester has come to an end. We've wrapped up a lot of our work from, that semester rush, and the team is sort of able to reflect and think about what we want for the next semester. But I think each year, as Reclaim continues to grow, that quiet time becomes less and less, because what I'm finding is, in the world of web hosting, our work picks up during everyone else's quiet time, because we have to do work when traffic is low. So holidays and summers are a thing of the past.
Exactly. Gone. But look at this. It was Amanda's first month, or I maybe didn't start until July or June, it looks like. But
no, Amanda would have started early June.
Yeah.
Early June. That's awesome.
I guess mid-June.
Yeah.
Because this would have come out the end of June.
And it's funny because we're now hiring instructional technologists who also support agents, but like we're even like now hiring ed techs, which is super interesting as a change. And then we start to get into the flex courses now.
Yep. This was our second one, I think. We had the Gravity Forms in June.
Yeah, and then this is where you're really starting to find your voice, Pilot, because you're like, starting tomorrow. What the heck, tomorrow? Like, you'll always have these things like, that's next week, or can you believe, or how is everything?
That's the thing, is the fun part about doing the announcements is going, oh yeah, and by the way, in case you missed it, you have 12 hours before this starts happening.
Well, and I think this is such a great outlet for you too, because, in the world of sales and account management, a lot of our communication and writing is dedicated to more formal emails and, invoicing and things of that nature. So to be able to, have a completely different voice or something that's a little more playful in the form of a monthly newsletter is really great, I think, for Reclaim.
Yeah. And it's also nice because, in addition, the GIFs also add that same level of playfulness. But if there is ever a point where I'm writing and I'm going, oh, this feels like not as playful and exciting as it could be, let's get a headless horseman GIF in there, something like that. Exactly. Or let's give the GIF a very silly, irreverent caption. Like, this should always be fun.
obligatory headless GIF.
Yeah.
And
I don't remember whether you or I captioned that one.
I don't know. This is when I was a little more involved, but like literally by September, October, or even earlier, July, this was pretty much you were. I was just reading it like everybody else. Like you had taken it over entirely, and the job you did is stupendous. But like Flex Course, here's our second one. We're announcing it for August. Like you can really see the pacing. We're getting out September, Domain of One's Own 101 workshop. If you looked at this compared to any other year at Reclaim Hosting, just the pure amount of programming and scheduling we've done is crazy at this point. And we far surpassed it, I think, come last month.
This was the year in 2022, I think, where a lot of our public planning really expanded. We obviously have had internal milestones and check-ins and planning to think, okay, what does Reclaim need to look like 6 months from now, 2 years from now, et cetera. And, we sort of point all of our work in that direction to make progress. But to be able to start capturing that and communicating that externally, this was the year, I think, where we really improved. And that's, I think, a sign of just how our team has grown and, being able to have capacity to think, that far in advance, and to have a calendar of like, okay, this is what the next 12 months are going to look like for, that we're going to commit to producing for our users, I think was really exciting for many reasons. But yeah, to have a June newsletter where we're talking about September events, we're talking about Domain of One's Own pricing changes in January of 23. So now, and to be able to start communicating that. Jim, if you keep scrolling, we now have a section for updates in infrastructure. So this is where we really start thinking, I think obviously before this as well, but just, okay, infrastructure is a team that has a lot of work coming, and we've got to be able to give our community a heads up of that, so starting to get better about that communication. You can see, I think, just that communication idea, really start to snowball by the middle of the year.
It's also interesting, to your point, Pilot, that the formatting has changed. It's not bullet points. It's full-blown, well-formed paragraphs that have a beginning, middle, and end to put people specific in their place, getting to your point of really letting them pick something they need and run.
Yeah. Announcements is one of my quibbles with Ghost is that they only offer 2 sizes of header. It's the ones that we use for each section, and then announcements get the header 2. But I could never subdivide into like, here are the events, and within the events, here's each event getting its own section. But I think that this is more elegant, more modular is such a weird way to put it, but I like thinking of things as modular. Yeah.
No, it works really well. I love the format.
Yeah.
And I had scrolled because I spilled my coffee down. I hadn't meant to, but like community chat now, part of it, right? And then going there, but then also talking about Reclaim TV and the fact that you can catch all 6 of them, which is pretty wild. And then there's this new one, in case you missed it, and whereas you talked about, like, here are the streams.
Yep.
I really liked this section too, because I think as you scroll towards the bottom, you have WordPress full site editing with Ed Beck, and we're starting to pull in more community voices.
Yeah.
And I want that even more for this newsletter. I want to be able to highlight work happening in the community too. And I think this, by middle of the year, we're starting to integrate just different voices, different happenings, and thinking, okay, if this is going to become a collection that folks really start to think about, and look at, is how can I just see what's relevant right now at a given time? I want there to be other elements there too, beyond just Reclaim announcements. So it's cool to see.
And I love the Mega Desk. Yeah. Because that was like almost a company fun thing. Like where Meredith would build this crazy desk and we would all talk about Mega Desk.
Yeah.
It was fun. And then we had the first Flex course, which was Gravity Forms, which a lot of people had written about. we're talking and playing with PeerTube, which we're running Reclaim TV and doing all sorts of stuff. I have not. That's the weirdest GIF, but I do love that.
Strange GIFs.
And then, what was this one? The Sisyphusian
SSH yep.
That's when we got the SSH all integrated, and we were able to kind of, stop that. Given the first part of the year, we had struggled with questions of security.
Mm-hmm.
So wild. And then obviously Snake Plissken, whenever you can get him in there.
Oh, and that's the start of Is EdTech Dead?
Is EdTech Dead?
There's 2 or 3 paragraphs. I told you guys, like, I try to keep it all to one paragraph. There's 2 or 3 paragraphs about the EdTech angst in the July newsletter. So coming directly off of this conversation.
And then support documentation here was a little lighter, interesting, right? But like it's a totally different thing. And then here's staff picks, which is great. I love it. I don't do enough of this. I should put more. Yeah. Digital Humanities Research Institute. That was Amanda who turned us on to these things, the wizard zines and DNS. Mm-hmm. And then really just cool stuff. And
got the sign off.
Here we go.
So good. All right. So we did January. We did June. Is it only logical now to jump to December or even
that makes sense?
January?
December. There's no January yet. I mean, you can show the draft off if you want, but it's literally just bullet points right now.
Okay. So
rounding out the year.
Yeah, because we could do this all day. We'd be kind of like, remember? Okay, rounding out the year.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got the lots of fireworks, but then immediately into the conference, which is
that's
So
right.
in addition to all of our monthly events now, we've got a big event coming June 2023. And so again, just to be able to see the capacity for our team continue to grow, that, in addition to all of these smaller events that we're now running, we've got our big conference coming to sort of celebrate the 10th anniversary of Reclaim and reflect on working in the open.
Yeah. How long does it get to get a coherent, cogent communications system together? About 10 years, I find.
It's fine.
Oh,
yeah, and you can see also that the titles are. This is at this point we've developed a more consistent. Lauren, you were talking about a consistent way of titling things. For event stuff, it's always month type title. So this says ongoing because it was ongoing at the time, but December/January, it's a flex course, not a workshop. Here's the title that's on the events calendar. And also using a little dash, I think. I experimented with colons for a while and then decided that I was not about that.
I love that, though. I love the way you're thinking of the actual textual formatting. It's so cool. And then I think we're going to do one last version of this OBS Flex course. But now we're doing Flex course on top of Flex course, right?
Yeah.
Like open media systems, OBS, like now we're like grabbing stuff with 2 hands. We're not even like, here's your little Flex course. Drink it out of my palms. We're like, here.
And that's also a thing is that I think very early on, it was like, we should probably get these announced a couple months in advance. And now it's always, here's what's starting tomorrow. Here's what's happening in a month. Here's what's happening in 2 months.
Yeah.
So that you can always theoretically plan your calendar out a couple months in advance and say, I should remember to keep up with that in February, or to say this is happening at the end of January. I'm really busy, but maybe I can block out some time.
And I think the other thing too that's cool to see over the course of this year was just the variety of events that we started putting out.
Mm-hmm.
Reclaim has done domains workshops for quite some time in the form of the Roadshow, for folks who remember that. We knew that we needed to have regular, semi-consistent workshops for admins that are joining or that need a refresher for Domain of One's Own, but we began the WordPress multi-site workshop in last year, and we're now doing our 201 starting this coming month in February. So that's cool to see that growth as well. But then going back to how we had those overlapping Flex courses for OBS, we did one on hacks for hybrid working over the summer of 2022, I guess. And so just to be able to see that variety for just differing interests, I think is also really cool too, just to see how that's expanding.
And then the WordPress multi-site 201 with Tom, which starts next month, which is in just a couple of days, to your point, pilot. And then, like you said, Domain at Once 2.0, and then the Installatron. This time we talked about creating Installatron templates for the community chat. Like, really, there is a tremendous amount. And then reflecting back on our Mastodon community chat in December. So it's wild, because I guess this one was announcing the community chat for the Installatron. That had already happened.
Yeah, we always announce next month and then do what we did the past month.
It's great.
So
for folks that missed it.
Yeah, so for tomorrow, it'll be February and then January. So that
also, just look how much larger news from infrastructure is by the end of this year compared to January of last year, which I don't think there was anything, or maybe there was one small sentence or something, but we really, you can see. And then the following is news from ed tech, so it's like it's almost like you're starting to capture news from the various teams at this point.
True.
We don't often actually do news from ed tech as its own section, but we hit the end of the year and I went, wait, do people know about this?
Yeah,
because this isn't like new at all. But if we're going into a new year and nobody knows about this, we got to put it in.
And then also, I love, here's another classic, pilotism. It's right here in the immortal words of Ina Garten. How easy is that?
I have
no idea who Ina Garten is.
For several years in a row.
How easy is that? Yeah.
So that's just great. I mean,
this section's being renamed and renamed like 3 times. I keep bouncing back between what's happening in Discord and in case you missed it.
But also, I mean, at the beginning of January, Discord barely existed, so the fact now that we have a whole section dedicated to just activity in that space is really cool to see. And I'm excited to see how that continues to expand in this next year.
There are 4 streams alone in December, 2 on Mastodon, 1 on Pressbooks, and another one on Owncast.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That's wild, right?
We have... counting this one, we'll have 5 for January.
That's crazy. And then recent blog posts, right? The blog has been, I just love, and I love that it's not just me. Like everybody is blogging. Everybody is talking.
It's your dream.
Yeah, it's my dream. It is. It sucks to blog alone. So
it's also,
it's amazing.
In the context, on the topic of the roundup getting longer, you'll notice that in the January one, it was each one gets a bullet point. The bullet point is maybe 1 to 2 sentences, but there's only 1 blog post in that bullet point. And here, this is slightly longer. It's a couple sentences, but I'm mushing. There are so many blog posts that in order to get through them efficiently, I end up having to group them and saying, okay, if you're interested in PeerTube stuff, here's a bunch of stuff from Taylor about PeerTube all together.
Which is so useful, though.
Yeah.
Because it's like if you take the time to read, the context is all there and you know what you're looking for. It's great. It's like the blogs don't live as a link list. They live as a conversation.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, it's nice from both an efficiency perspective, not letting it get too long, and as you say, it's always really fun. I keep coming back to July because there was so much happening in July, but there was just a whole conversation going back and forth about what the future of EdTech might look like. And that's a really good example of where both of those intersected to say, okay, Jim wrote about this first, and then Taylor wrote a response, and then Jim wrote and here's very briefly what everyone was putting into the conversation. Here's what Amanda was thinking. And also, pushed it into 3 paragraphs to keep it short.
But it's kind of capturing the thinking at a given time, which I love. And coming to the support guide section. So
support guides are amazing every month.
as just sort of a note, the support team, I had asked them to take a break in support documentation for the month of December. We did a lot of internal review of our guides just to make sure that, there weren't broken images, broken links, that things were still correct. And it was a lot of review last month. So the fact that there's still this much that was produced when this was a break for Reclaim, for putting out new documentation, that for me is incredible to see. Just how much was like, no, we've got to get this out. This is important for our team to know, or for our users to know. And I think it's also really cool to see. The other thing I'll just share about the support team, because I think that their documentation has been incredible in this last year. But by the end of the year, you can see that some of the guides we're putting out in support are aligning now with the EdTech events. And we're trying to just, be a bit more cohesive about what the various teams are thinking about and making that work align a little bit more. So you can see, we had just come off of a WordPress multi-site workshop, and knowing that we were going to have a February workshop coming. And so we're talking about obtaining and assessing usage data in WordPress multi-site, WordPress backups in the cloud, using caching plugins with WordPress. This is all relevant to kind of what the other teams were thinking about, and using the support documentation to bolster that. And so again, I just have to congratulate that team in particular for their work.
I have to say, I go to the point now where I'm like, I got a ticket about Reclaim Cloud and running WordPress from Reclaim Cloud yesterday, and I'm like, I don't know what we have. I did a search, and it's like, we have like 3 to 4 articles I could push people to and be like, yep, here it is if you have questions. Like, it's getting to the point where we talked about trying to like build something out like DigitalOcean. And we're getting to the point where those guides and those ideas that we're building out are really impressive. I mean, and I think that is another huge part of 2022 that has been gigantic.
One of the workflows that we've added, and then I promise I'll stop talking about support documentation, but just encouraging the team to think, okay, if you encounter a support ticket where you don't know the answer and we have no resources available at Reclaim to help you find that answer, that is a gap. That is something that we can improve and put in our list of possible guides. And so once you're learning the answer, once you go out and find the solution, document it, put it in a space so others can see and benefit from that. And so that workflow has really improved a lot this coming year as well. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the team for navigating that.
You all should be. It's great.
It's so good.
It's a strength of Reclaim now, frankly. I'm sorry, go ahead, Pilot.
I was just going to say that every month in terms of the idea of like, we look back at the roundup and we go, gosh, we've accomplished so much in the past month. That hits particularly to me with support documentation, to go back and go, just the amount of research and work and thought and care that got put into these things. And we have like 5 to 8 to 10 some months.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And also, just spoiler alert for tomorrow's, we have a couple of things that are aligning with the open media ecosystem stuff that we did this past month. We have one on Owncast from you, Jim. We actually have one on Mastodon, which is aligning with that event that we're running along with Alt. This Mastodon will explode. We have a bunch of stuff that... It just feeds into each other, like things that we're interested in learning about, we run events on, we research, we write up. Things that we're running events on, we want to make sure we're getting our expertise documented, that we have resources for people who are coming back to this after the fact.
Yeah.
It goes together really nicely.
And it doesn't even include the internal documentation that our team is producing.
That's
true. So there's so much that doesn't even make the newsletter because it's internal, and it can't be public. So, I mean, that team, but everyone is contributing to that space, that knowledge base. And it's really...
It's hard to think that a team of 10 does this sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like really, when you look at it, like look at that newsletter and objectively think there are 10 people at Reclaim, and it is like hats off to every one of them.
And
100%.
speaking of, we've got Noah,
Noah.
first in staff picks, our most recent hire for infrastructure team, already contributing and helping us think through various security practices, and I'm sure other things that are listed here.
Well, this also pushed Noah to do a really great professional development about security and like what our team is doing to make sure. And it was really a great event. Noah has a great kind of balance of scaring the bejesus out of you while at the same time being completely, yeah. But it's been really great. And like this was that whole over the wire was what inspired us to say, maybe we should do a professional development on this. So again, the staff picks and even just the Roundup in general, feeding the general culture of Reclaim, which was always the point. And it is working. Like it is working beautifully. And again, like we're not short for examples. And of course,
if I can find a wizard GIF, I got to put a wizard GIF in there.
And that's a good one.
Yeah.
You'd certainly. And so now if you've watched this and you aren't subscribed, this was the long sell.
Like and subscribe.
Took 51 minutes and 30 seconds to get here, but we're here. Like and subscribe for more.
Yep.
Any final words to wrap up the 2022 newsletter cycle and what we're hoping for this coming year?
All hail Pilot is my final word on that.
Go back and watch our Ghost Flex course from November to learn more about how this happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
We've got big ideas coming for this year too. So I'm excited to maybe do this again at the end of 2023 or beginning of 24 and see, okay, these milestone moments for Reclaim and just maybe where.
Yeah.
I think if there is something, if I was, and you already mentioned it, so it's nothing new, is I'd like to see more community entries.
I was just about to say, this would have been, it probably came out in September, not September, in November, I want to say. You did a community highlight with
Riv Ellen Prell.
Yes.
On A Campus Divided, and I should do more of that. We should.
Yeah.
So
and seeing that one with Ed from back during the summer, that had totally slipped my mind as well, and
I think
it's just great.
Yeah, we had one school reach out saying that they were hiring, and if we could announce that, to the circles on our end. I think that, having some sort of form or submission space where folks can say, hey, this is important to me, or I want to highlight this. This is, a great event or something that I want others to know about. Having a space where admins and folks in the community can go and put it there. Even if it's a space in Discord, and then we're just taking that and putting it in the newsletter, whatever that looks like. I agree. I think having a consistent headline each month for community work or community voices or whatever that looks like, the highlight, we talked about case studies. Anyway, there's a lot to come, a lot of cool ideas.
As good as we are, we still have more to do.
But yeah, I think, it's really important to capture and to celebrate how far we have come. And this is one of the ways that we can do that and just sit here and be really proud of that work too. So
I think that's the thing about the Roundup. Like the Roundup is a celebration of the work. And I just think every one of us look at that with a certain amount of pride and, not only in the work we've done, but the work that our colleagues are doing. And like, it's a cool thing. And it's as much an internal tool as an external one. And it kind of fits so many bills. And like the fact to have someone be lucky enough, like we are, to have someone like Pilot, like really own it and really get passionate about it and really deliver on it every month is big. It means a lot. It helps us generally.
Have you guys let me send everybody wizard gifts every month.
Well, I'm glad that's working for you.
No, I really like putting together the Roundup every month and just getting to I feel like we've all said this maybe 6 or 7 times in the last hour, but just getting it to see this little collection, microcosm, archive of everything that we've done in the past month. And then it's been super helpful for me because I can now go, okay, so this would have been approximately September or July, or this would have been back in April. I can get a better sense of what we've done and when, and all of the big milestones that we've hit. We've hired 2 people over the past year. Amanda and Noah both joined the team. We actually hit relatively close to when Noah joined. He came in back in October, November were his first couple months, but Amanda in June, Noah in October. We have all the new events that we're doing. Just being able to see all of the growth that we've had, all of the new things that we've tried and accomplished, and things that we've tried as one-offs and gone, actually, this is great. Let's make it a flex course. Let's do something.
Yeah.
It's just been really cool.
And we have those avenues now for our ideas. So is this a stream? Is this a community chat? Is this a conversation in Discord?
Yeah.
Should it be a full flex course? How much do we have to say? Should it be a couple blog posts? The avenues are there now and they're a little bit more fleshed out. And I really like that. And I want to continue in 2023 to organize, okay, what's Reclaim TV? What is included in that, and sort of combine some of our video resources a little bit more. And so the community.reclaimhosting.com space is a great starting point for that too, which has the Roundup, but also has all of these other avenues listed. So anyway, I'm sure we could go on for a while, but
now that you've said that, I'm just thinking about intentions that we set back in November of 2021. We talked about wanting to do a Reclaim Today episode for every single month of 2022, to have a Reclaim Today episode that can go into every single issue of the Roundup. And we didn't do that. I think we've had 3, maybe 4 in the past year, but we also have so many streams.
Yeah.
So even if it's not technically, we all sat down for a Reclaim Today, we've been honoring that intention in other ways.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, I know we're going to get under an hour, I promise you. But if you look at our YouTube channel or our Reclaim TV PeerTube, I think we did over 10 streams this month alone. That to me is just, that's a whole nother discussion, Reclaim TV. It's crazy.
That's huge.
Yeah. New episode. Be looking out for a Reclaim.
New episodes every Monday.
Like and subscribe to get notified of that next new big episode. Hit that button. Smash that button.
Where are we pointing? Where is it?
Somewhere.
I think we better get off.
Just cover all our bases.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Happy New Year at the end of January.